In this module, I'm not going to build on the code from the previous modules as I have done before. The reason for this is that the code from the previous modules is dependent on ASP.NET MVC, and since ASP.NET MVC can't be hosted inside of the OWIN pipeline, we can't host it outside of IIS. So because of that, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new project instead. I'm going to go for a console application, and I'm going to call it pluralsight.owin.demo.hosting. And as usual, the first thing we need to do is go and get a NuGet package. In this case, I'm going to install microsoft.owin.selfhost. And as you can see here, this package is even nice enough to give us a nice readme.txt file that tells us exactly what we need to do to get started. And as with any Katana-based application, that means creating a startup class. Next, we need to make sure that the startup class conforms to what Project Katana expects. That means first of all making the class public, and then adding a public static void method called configuration that takes an IAP builder parameter. To be perfectly honest, the configuration method doesn't need to be static. It works just as well if it's not, but I'm just used to making it static for some reason. Next, we need to configure our OWIN pipeline. And since this is a demo about hosting the pipeline and not about the actual function of the pipeline, I'm just going to add a very simple delegate-based middleware. And I'm going to have it return hello world, just to have something happen. Okay, so now that we have an OWIN pipeline configured and ready, even though it's a very simple one, it's time to focus on the actual hosting. So I'm going to head back to the readme.txt file and copy out that implementation that they had put in there. And then I'm going to go back to program.cs and paste that code in there. And to get that web app class to register, I need to add a using statement to microsoft.owin.hosting. And just to make it a little bit easier to understand what's happening, I'm going to use the console.writeLine to write out listening to port 12345 and press enter to end. And that should be everything that we need to do to get it to work. So let's just press F5 and see what happens. Okay, so we get a console window that does say listening to port 12345 and press enter to end. And if we pull up a browser and we browse to localhost port 12345, we get hello world. So that's it. A self-hosted OWIN pipeline that responds when we send requests to it. Just what we were looking for. However, there's one major difference between hosting your Katana-based pipeline in IIS and hosting it on your own. And that's when you're serving up static content. So if you're serving up static content like images and CSS files and JavaScript files and things like that, IIS will handle that for you without any problem. However, when you self-host, you have to take care of serving static files on your own. Luckily, it's a piece of cake to do. All you have to do is install another NuGet package called microsoft.owin.staticfiles. And then head over to your startup class and add it to the OWIN pipeline using app.useStaticFiles. And to make sure that it works, I'm going to go ahead and add a static file to my project. I'm just going to go to my desktop and get my file called sven.jpg. And to make sure that it ends up in the same folder as my console application, I'm just going to go to the properties and change the copy to output directory to copy if newer. So let's see if that works as it should. And if we pull up a browser and we head to /sven.jpg, and there it is, we've got Sven. And that's it. That's all there's to serving static files from your own self-hosted OWIN pipeline when using Project Katana.